Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today, I am here with Nic Warner, and he is a relationship, embodiment, and intimacy guide for couples, for men, for women. And today we're going to be talking about what stands in the way of us creating greater union when we're already in relationship, when we're even in the dating process. Maybe we even notice some patterns in relationship to the masculine or the feminine in general, depending if you're a man or a woman. And so welcome, Nic. Thank you so much for being here. And I'd love if you can introduce yourself a bit more. And even maybe what brought you to this point in your work, like why you're focusing now on greater union. I see you have an upcoming 6-week program as well called Union. So it's so fitting for this season of the podcast.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for having me, Nikki. Yeah, I mean, I got into this out of my own kind of dysfunction and inability to be in relationship. And it very much started with, how do I heal sexual dysfunction? How do I quit porn addiction? How do I find purpose? How do I live a life that I actually deeply love rather than something that I'm trying to numb myself from and hide from? And so I got into Tantra, I got into Neo Tantra because I thought that was the thing that was going to save me. And very quickly realized that that was not the case. Got into meditation, fantastic, but kind of just escaped through long periods of silent meditation and found plant medicine. And really that took me a lot deeper and was like, well, that's great. And what can I do that it became another crutch. I lived in the jungle and I was drinking medicine consistently and I was like, yeah, great, but this is not my life. Went through breath work, went through many different things. And eventually I found men's work and I was like, oh, this is the thing. This was what I wish I had all of those years ago. This is the thing that guys actually are longing for. And through years of kind of just being in men's work and having my teacher and having my own men's circles and men's groups, I would feel into what is the part of me that, where am I not free in life? And this was something that I'd constantly come back to, and I'd get into a relationship and realize that, yes, I've healed all of my sexual dysfunction and I can do all these amazing things, and I still suck at relationship. My nervous system can't hold her when she collapses. So I got deeper into that and kind of really started to dig into my own relational dysfunction or where it comes from and the wounds from my parents. And it's been a natural evolution of my own healing to start where I started and to end up in this place now, in profound relationship with my own little boy. And sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. In profound relationship, and we have our own little son. And it's really beautiful. It's a real reflection of how deep union can become once you both are on the same path and you both heal your wounds and you both take accountability and you both hold each other to a certain standard.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And I feel you're speaking to such an important point for all men and women to hear, which is the power of the group healing and the men's work, and to have that other mirror. Women, it's more common that there's like women's circles and women's groups. And now, thankfully, for men, it's becoming even more common. And I find that it can be triggering for both men and women to really face your stuff. And it's like
Mm.
in those containers, that's where you can really be seen and held without judgment. It's not about shaming, of course, but it's more like, I desire union. I desire an incredible relationship that is everything I've ever dreamed of and more. And the spaces that we can go. And with women, it's like healing with other women and doing the womb work and all of that. And with men, it's really about like, this is where I feel like with men, at least what I've heard, all right, I haven't been in a men's circle. Like sometimes it's even good for you to hit each other with sticks and like be like, come on, man up, and like really support you guys both, of course, in expressing emotion and going through that, but also about being able to hold the challenges of life and staying focused and being in it, kind of like you mentioned when she collapses, to also not get triggered and throw your emotions into the fire, etc. And that's kind of
Mm.
like where men go to share their emotions, is really in men's circles, right?
Ideally, that is where men go. Problem with many relationships is that that's not where men go. Men go to their woman and they say, well, why do I have to hold you if you don't have to hold me? And they really unwillingly or unknowingly destroy the polarity of the relationship. And we live in this world of we're the same. There's this big push that we are equal. And sure, we're equal, but we're not the same. And it is our difference that makes relationships so beautiful. And I had somebody comment on a post at some point where he's like, why do I have to open the door for her? It's 2025. Why can't we just open it for each other? And it's like, go for it, mate. Fucking go for it. And enjoy your sexless relationship, because there's just men have been kind of coerced into becoming more and more feminine over the past 50 years, and women have been similarly coerced into becoming more and more masculine. And to a certain point, maybe it was healthy. Like we needed to men especially needed to become less rigid and able to feel more. Yet we've lost our tether to consciousness, and we've lost our ability to contain and to sit and to be with the storm without it affecting us. And to go to a men's group and or a men's circle or a retreat or whatever and release and emote, fantastic. But don't allow that to be the thing that you do, and then you come home and suddenly you're just more in touch with your feelings and you're more emotional, and now she's got to hold more of you, because it's not the point. And I love that so many men are starting men's circles and there are men's retreats all over the place. But many of them lack this understanding of what masculine containment truly is. And without that lineage of understanding, we're missing the point. And I've had women say to me, I won't date a man that goes to men's circles because he's just so much more in his feminine. And I heard a guy, there's a retreat coming up somewhere, and one of the facilitators says, I'm going to lead guys into masculine expression, which is an absolute oxymoron, because the expression is the feminine. Lead them into expression, fantastic, but that's not masculine. And this is the problem. This guy's leading this fucking retreat, and it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
So
And you're speaking to something which is a typical dysfunction that prevents greater union, is when the woman steps up to mother her man. And so this is what tends to happen if a man comes to his woman with his problems and his emotions, the woman will then feel like, okay, I need to fix, this is mothering energy and this is masculine energy. So mothering energy is actually masculine. So it kills our polarity when we're like trying to help our men, and they got it. Sometimes they just either want to listen, or, really our time can be so much better spent when we are polarized as masculine and feminine. So when I have women say they have old feminism programming that's like, we don't need men, I'm like, that is not true. Yes, we do need men. Feminism was horrible for relationships. It is something that I feel that was a polarity, like a cock block, a killer to true union and really appreciating the differences between men and women. Like, I don't want to lift heavy things. Like those pictures with the women with their like biceps. Like, I don't want to do any of that. Please do not involve me in that. I do not want to be 50-50. Please. This whole like 2025, like I am not a part of that. Like, I love that we're different. I love that when I have a hard time opening a jar, I'm like, here you go. Can you please open it? And I love that there's differences between men and women, and it's our strengths are differences are what make us different and beautiful, and like a magnet, plus and minus come together. And so, yeah, and I think that if anything, men and women, just a practical takeaway right now, it's like, men, do not mother your men. If you want his help and for him to do something, let him do it in the way he's going to do it. And men, do not come to your woman with your feelings and your problem and all of those things, because it will make her feel like, oh no, like I have to step up now. I remember I would feel like that in certain relationships. I feel like I would have to do something or step up. And that's all masculine energy. And that kind of gets into the control piece too. I know we talked a little before we came on the episode, where women, when you want to control, this is also, I feel, more of a masculine energy that's going to kill polarity. And we can deepen on what that means. But you can share something.
Yeah, there is a very small difference between mothering him and being in service to him as his queen. And it could look, you could cook him dinner and wash his clothes in service to love.
And that's
out
more
of
like
deep devotion.
That's more of like love language, acts of service. That's different. Absolutely.
Exactly. But you could also make his dinner and wash his clothes because he acts like a child, and because that's what needs to happen in the relationship. So it's basically the same thing, but what is the texture of energetic that it is coming from? Where is it coming from?
Yeah. And that, I feel, is the control piece. So I want to share a really powerful example so I tend to, when I work with women, at some point their men come in for a session because they're evolving so quickly. And when they start to understand masculine and feminine polarity and dynamics, and they start to understand what they're doing that's hurting the relationship, etc. And so I had a husband come on and say, she speaks to me so nasty. And if she asked me to do something and I do it, but it wasn't done 1, 2, 3, but I did it 1, 3, 2, then that's it. Like, it's wrong. And I know I've been guilty of this. I remember one time I was dating a guy that was from a different country, and he washed the dishes differently than I did. Like, how I don't know if you're from the UK or Australia, but when people put soap in the water and then they kind of get soapy water and they dip the dishes. I don't wash dishes like that. I'm like, put the soap on the sponge, and then, and I don't want the chemicals of the soap, right? And I remember getting so triggered, like, why are you washing the dishes like this, And then in the end, like, who cares? It's clean dishes. Who cares? Who cares if they go and hire someone to wash the dishes? They're clean. Who cares? That's the mothering piece. Do it like this. It has to be exactly like this. Dot your I's like this and cross your T's like this, versus, oh yeah, I would love support. And then just however it happens, like, thank you, be surrendered. Allow yourself to receive the gift that your man is giving you, however it's done. So would you say that's more of the mothering texture?
Yeah, I mean, that whole micromanaging thing, it's, I want a king, but I'm going to micromanage everything he does. I want him to lead, but he has to lead the way that I want him to. It's like, well, I'm such a huge advocate for radical responsibility, and there's this desire from so many women of, I want a more masculine man, or that similar desire from men, I want a more feminine woman. And it's like, okay, but do you create the space for that to happen? And for men, it's like, probably the reason she's controlling is that she doesn't feel safe enough around you to allow you to do it. Probably over time there has been, and it could be from past relationships and experiences with men, but typically you've done enough things often enough that have caused her to just subtly close more and more and more, to the point where she needs to control you because she can't trust the way that you do things, or she can't trust that you will do things.
Yeah.
Similarly, well, it's just it's a lack of integrity.
Yeah, I think let's really spell it out, because I think here is where sometimes men don't see the. So specific examples would be like, she asked you to do something and it's a week later and you still haven't done it. She asked you to do something and you just actually forgot. You like never even did it, and then she had to bring it up again. And you're like, oh, I forgot. Like, these are moments of like dropping the ball that then would make your woman controlling and sound like she's nagging, but it's because you said you would do it and then you didn't, or you took really a long time. Or what are some other examples you would say, Nic?
Well, I want to just point out that men don't have the awareness around how much or what it takes to break a woman's trust. They're not aware of how much safety she needs, because a man can walk through the street at night with his headphones in and not think about anything, whereas most women will never walk down the street at night with their headphones in. So there is a different reality that men are just simply unaware of. There is a different hypervigilance. There's a level of hypervigilance which women are constantly living in because of the way society is. Now,
I want to interject something here where myself included, and other, like in one of my women's programs right now, we've talked about where the thought, if we're walking by ourselves and it's the certain energy of the street, or sometimes if I even walk in nature here and there's no one around, I've had the thought of like, oh my God, what if someone came and raped me right now? And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, so it's even ancestral in women, where it's like, I'm totally safe. Like, I'm sure I can just yell, I'll be fine. But it, even this year, these months, it's come into my consciousness. Like, what if a guy just came and I'm like, whoa. And it even scares me. So it is good that you're sharing this, because it's true. I think some people don't even realize that women have these thoughts.
No, it came to me when I sat in ceremony with someone, and it was great. It was a great experience. Trust him completely. A good friend of ours was like, oh my God, I've wanted to try this. How's the guy? I was like, fantastic, super trustworthy. She goes off, she has her experience with him, and on the medicine, this guy molests her. And it is not something that would ever cross my mind was going to happen to me in ceremony. So I didn't even think about it with her. But it really instilled in me this understanding of how hypervigilant women are. And this comes down to the smallest thing. You can do the thing 99 times right, and the one time you don't do it, she's like, oh, fuck, I can't trust him. Like, there's this little break in integrity, and I don't know if I can trust him.
I'll call you at 9 p.m. or I'll call you in a half hour, and you don't. We feel that so deeply.
Yeah.
It's so silly. It seems so silly, right? But it's true. And we think, not really trustworthy. Can't honor his word. Can't honor time.
I don't think it is silly. I think we're just different in that. And, men are very logical, rational creatures. Feminine is very emotional and intuitive. So we make decisions based on what is logical and rational. The feminine makes decisions based on what is emotionally alive for her and what is intuitive in the moment. So when we understand that difference, we can begin to be more generous with understanding, or even more compassionate with understanding why she does or says, why she does do things the way she does or says things the way she does. Her truth is what is alive in her heart moment to moment, which means it could change every fucking 15 seconds. Whereas a man's truth is based on logic and rationale and therefore should not change. So we're just different in that. And, coming back to this whole idea of she can't trust me or she's controlling is probably because we've done things enough times. I mean, we're probably very trustable. We probably, we don't lie, or maybe we just only white lies. We do things that we say we're going to do. We turn up on time. But perhaps energetically, we're not wide enough for her. So she gets upset, we collapse, or we get defensive, or we do the things that because we haven't healed our own shit. So energetically, we're just a little bit we're not wide enough. And therefore, she loses trust in us.
Yeah, and even you said the white lies as if the white lies are okay, but I want you to know even the white lies are not okay.
No, but I'm also not going to say that nobody lies ever, because that's just not true.
Of course not. So on both sides, if and when lying happens. And I do feel that for some reason, I don't know why it is, that I do feel that women feel like lying is a bigger deal than men do. I don't know why. I don't know, but I have come across this as when I've worked with men and women, and it seems like men feel like, oh yeah, it's like okay to kind of tell these white lies, and women tend to be more wanting, and I think it's because we're more intuitive beings, like you said. So even if someone tells a white lie, it's like we could still feel the dissonance in our body, and we're like, something's not right, and we can't quite put our finger on what that is. So I do feel that for greater union, the radical honesty and transparency is so much better. And that even if we do say the white lie, that it's better to say, actually, I misspoke, or you know what, I said that, but this is actually what's true. Because even though we don't know why, we'll feel like a contraction in the body as an intuitive being when there is a lie in the field. That's been my experience.
Yeah, and it's the integrity for a man is that his words, his actions, and his thoughts are in alignment. Integrity for a woman is that she is expressing the truth of her heart moment to moment. So there are slightly different perceptions of. I know that if my woman says something to me and 20 minutes later she's saying something different, I'm not going to say, well, you're out of integrity. I'm actually going to say, thank you for expressing that truth, because I get that that's where you're at now. Whereas if I said to her something and then changed my mind 20 minutes later, there would have to be a deeper explanation for it.
Yeah. And I have found that a lot of guys who are deepening on their spiritual path, they kind of feel like being in flow with the moment, which is a very feminine way to be. And I've actually dated some guys like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so unattractive. Like, I actually don't even want to keep dating you if you're telling me you can't make plans because you have to see what the universe is going to show you. And they're trying to say that that's true divine masculinity. I don't agree with that. And this is a thing that I actually wrote a really popular post that I'm turning into the book. And it was like, it was 14 unconscious behaviors the masculine can do to sabotage union with the feminine. And this was one of them, like this wishy-washy. Let's be in flow. And so can you talk a bit more too about what actually that divine masculine holding containment energy is like, and that plans are required for that? Because of course, hearing it from a woman is different from hearing it from a man, of why it's so important to make plans and to stick to your word and to honor the truth of your word, etc.
Yeah, I mean, a simple metaphor for this is that the masculine is the riverbank and the feminine is the water. And the riverbank provides the depth, the width, the direction. And within that, feminine waters can be calm and flowing or absolutely chaotic and wild, but it's all contained. And if there is no riverbank, the water then has to somehow try and create its own structure and ultimately dries out. And if the water gets too much, because sometimes the water is not alchemizing her feelings through her heart, and it actually is a little bit abusive, does the masculine riverbank widen, or does it set boundaries, or does it just collapse? And this is, I've been in spiritual communities for 25 years, actually. I went to my first one when I was 18 years old, and the most common thing in these communities is that the majority of men are just deeply in their feminine. And it feels safe for a little bit because, we can have deep conversations and he's in touch with his emotions and, he listens and he understands me. And then suddenly it just starts to lack depth and it lacks integrity and it lacks trustworthiness and it's really fucking unsafe. And this is, when I was going to these tantric events, this was what my understanding of the masculine was. Some guy that was just in flow and he could hold the feminine energetically. Meanwhile, he was, in his head thinking about what he needs to do to make sure that he looks great in her eyes. That whole world is just suffering under a sea of unhealed trauma. And it's trauma perpetuating trauma and then calling itself spiritual.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so as we're coming towards a closing for this episode, what would you say? So we're basically, I feel like this point of this episode was to bring to light certain behaviors that are preventing union. So like for the feminine, we talked about control, mothering, and for the masculine, we talked about what could make her not trust in terms of like being out of integrity, lies, not speaking, not honoring your word, not following through. Are there any last ones you want to bring a highlight to that you've really seen can really cause a separation instead of a union between the masculine and the feminine?
Mm.
I know I'll say one from the feminine side is I never really knew what respect was. Like I know what respect is, but I didn't know what it was on like a tangible day-to-day basis. And maybe you can also illuminate some things. So what I didn't understand was like every time we emasculate a man, that it's not respect. And then what that looks like is like interrupting a man when he's speaking. And I know that I kind of had to do that sometimes in this talk, because obviously it's a conversation. We want to get as much as we can in. But it's, if we're in relationship, for example, really giving our man like that space and time to answer, because they take a little bit longer to respond to questions. And so having that patience instead of being like, why aren't you answering me? It's like maybe he's going into the well of his heart to really like get the answer for you. And then to really let him finish. And like to help yourself, it's like close your mouth, like put your finger on your lip, let him finish completely. Right. And then I also learned that it was like kind of questioning how a man does things. So how we talked about it, instead of micromanaging, it's like let him do it how he's going to do it. Don't micromanage, because that is disrespectful. Does anything come to mind of what feels disrespectful for you to receive from the feminine that would create more of a separation than a union?
Just the way that we are spoken to.
That's a good one.
Yeah. If we are spoken down to or spoken to in an abusive manner or
nasty tone.
Yeah, anything that's just not in service to love, it is like it's a total contraction. And it doesn't benefit anybody. And sure, sometimes the guy needs to be kind of woken up, but saying, if you want your message to land, allow it to come from your oracle and not from your wound. And coming from your wound is criticism, it is complaint, it is nagging, it is abuse, it is projection. Coming from your oracle is when you alchemize it through your heart and you share it in a way that it lands. Like it might just be a seed that's planted, but it is going to be a seed that is planted that becomes a tree of like, fuck, I really hurt her when I did that. Like I've never thought about it like that. And he might go, I don't want to hear it like this. But if it's done in the right way, that seed will be planted and you've done your work.
Yeah.
But the complaint and criticism is just not helpful.
The tone of softness can be really, I think that's one of the biggest textures that men crave. So even if you try to say it soft, but underneath, it's not going to work, right? When underneath you feel the trigger, you could try to like sugarcoat how you're saying it and talk softly, but you really do have to feel it in your heart in order for it to really be.
It doesn't even have to be soft. Like it can be deep rage, but it has to come through the heart.
Yeah.
Like rage that is, rinsed through the pain of your heart is like, but rage that is just unbridled and abusive, it's like, why would we don't have to listen to that.
Yeah.
Like, this whole be the mountain, sure. And you have your own work to do. The feminine's work is to sit with her emotion and process it before she dumps it onto him. And there is a line that, in this whole Instagram world of fucking be the mountain, it's like, we don't have to sit there and be abused. Like, in fact, it's really not healthy for anybody. So if the man is present enough, he'll sit there and when she's in her storm, he'll just be like, my love, I want to have this conversation with you, but I will not be disrespected and I will not be spoken to like that. So let's go out, let's take a breath, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. We'll have the conversation. But because men haven't done enough work on themselves, she gets upset, he gets upset, they both collapse, and then it's a shit show.
Absolutely. And so any last reflections for the masculine also, because I feel like I shared about these aspects that women do to create separation instead of union. Anything that we didn't touch upon that you think men really need to be brought into the awareness of men?
Yeah, structure and leadership, I think, are two really important things. And that whole dynamic of the woman becoming the mother is typically because the man lacks structure. And when he lacks that riverbank, she can't trust, and then she needs to build her own riverbank, and then the polarity flips, and then it becomes kind of the dynamic. And for him to have his own structure in life in all areas, from physical and mental health to career to family to social life, the more structure and clarity he has in that area, the safer he'll feel. And then to lead, to plan, to not leave it up to her to say, hey, do you want to do a date night? Do you want to go on a holiday? Do you want to actually take the initiative and do these things for her? The more you can do to take off her plate, the softer she'll become, the more relaxed she'll become, the more feminine she'll become. So I kind of touched on this in the beginning. We have this idea of, I wish she was more feminine, I wish he was more masculine. Who do you need to become so they can actually be inspired to become that role themselves? And that's that radical responsibility.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to end. We are going to go deeper inside the bonus content where Nic is going to be guiding us through a process for us to see where our confirmation bias, so like what we expect our partner to be like, is creating reality, and how to shift that and how to bring more awareness to that and to then instead flip it. So it's for both men and women. And Nic, where can people find you and connect with you? And if there's anything else that you want to share about, such as your upcoming program, you can do that now. Sure.
Yeah, Instagram at Nic Warner is where most things go. My website, nicwarner.com. We do have a 6-week couples program called Union. It actually starts the beginning of October. And that will get into all the juice. So for most of it, we're in it together. There's a week when I'm just with the men. There's a week where I'm just with the women. Sarah, my partner, is with the men 1 week, with the women 1 week. We go into the 3 pillars of sacred relating, which is intimacy, polarity, and generosity. Repair. There are many things, many tricks, tips, practices that we have used in our own relationship and we use with our clients as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Nic, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you inside the bonus content. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.